There are some names Boston College have grabbed in the transfer portal that we're not talking about, but we really should because they're going to make a big impact on BC this season.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 bonus bets if you win. On today's show, I have an idea of where I think BC's offensive coordinator position is going. I'll give you my thoughts based off of things that Bill O'Brien has said. And I'm going to give you a handful of under-the-radar transfers BC landed who could pan out big for BC in 2026. So let's kick this off. Now, you know, when you're talking when we've been talking about transfers, there's been a few names that have really stuck out. You know, there was the Evan Dickens who ran for 1,300 yards and 16 touchdowns last year. Chris Jones, the linebacker who from Georgia, who was a 4-star, and of course the quarterback position with Mason McKenzie. But we're looking at a transfer class of 27 players, and some names are getting more publicity than others. And I think that's important, but I also think there's some names that we aren't bringing up enough. Players that came into Boston College that don't have a huge background, but I think still could play a pivotal role for BC in 2026. So these are going to be some transfers that have come in that I've just been kind of sitting with and kind of jiving with a little bit in terms of how I feel about their future at BC. It's starting to feel like they're going to play a big role. The first name I have to bring up is Cameron Kossman, the tight end from Florida. Now, you look at his background, right? 6'5" tight end, who was originally committed to Penn, not Penn State, the University of Pennsylvania, I believe in Ivy League, right? And he flipped to Florida when Florida offered. Now, he played, I think, one snap for the Gators, you know, in one of those FCS games. We've had plenty of those guys at BC, right? And really, you know, you're looking at it and you're going, okay, he's not a huge offer list type of guy. He hasn't done much. Why should I think that Cameron Kossman is going to do much for BC? You look at the tight end position. I'm gonna my story for the next 6 months is going to be all about Kalen Chudzinski. I think he's going to be excellent, and we'll get into his dad in a little bit. But you look past Chud, and you look at what BC has run for an offense. A lot of times, BC goes for a 1-2 offensive set. That's one running back, 2 tight ends. You see that quite a bit, right? You saw it with Kamari Morales and Jeremiah Franklin. Then you saw Jeremiah Franklin and Chud this year. So you think that this is going to be even though Will Long, the offensive coordinator, is gone, it's still Bill O'Brien's offense. And that 1-2 offense has been a key component to a lot of his sets. It was a very heavily used play set. So someone's going to have to step up. And you lost Ty Lockwood. You lost Stevie Amar. Your tight end room shrunk quite a bit. Now you're going to get Danny Edgehill back. And many of you may not be like, who's Danny Edgehill? You know, he's a walk-on, but I know the staff thinks a lot about him. He's a definitely guy that steps it up in practice. He could be the guy that steps up and becomes that second tight end. But for me, for my bang for my buck, this is what Cameron Kossman is coming in for. I don't expect him to be Rob Gronkowski or Travis Kelce. This is a guy that's going to be like Korab Adrizzi, Chris Garrison, the kind of more of a blocking tight end, but also a weapon in the red zone. Kamari Morales kind of did this too. Like you can get him out there in space and make some plays. I think he's going to have decent hands. Don't expect him to make a huge amount of catches, but I would expect that if the passing game is going and they get that running, Kossman's going to be someone that I could see making some plays for BC. And, you know, I imagine he's a he's going to be a redshirt freshman that he'll probably get some play. You know, you get those other guys that are there, like whether it's DJ Johnson or Edge Hill, as I mentioned, Brady Clogue, you know, they could play, but I'm wondering if Kossman's going to be that guy. You know, I think he probably has a good chance at that. So he's one name I'm watching because I think he's going to probably crack the 2 deep pretty quickly. Another name, and let's before we get into our first break, let's go a little controversial here. And this is a name I'm very interested to see at camp, and that's Grayson Wilson, the quarterback. Everyone is talking about Mason McKenzie, right? This is the kid that's from Saginaw Valley. He was, you know, a D2 player of the year for his conference, insane conference that Trinidad Chambliss played for. You know, there was that quote that got deleted that he said that he's been told the position is his. Again, my stance is sure the staff probably have seen something in him, but I'm still a little skeptical. It's a huge jump to go from D2 to Power 4 football. And, you know, maybe he makes the jump well, and maybe he doesn't. I look at Grayson Wilson. It's going to be so hard to not call him Grayson James. Grayson Wilson from Arkansas. And I see a similar situation almost to what Dylan Larnagin came in last year as. You know, Wilson came from an SEC school, buried on the depth chart. Huge numbers in high school, one of the best athletes in Arkansas school at state history. You know, they've got some good ones like Darren McFadden, but you look at his statistics and it's hard to argue, right? So he's got these big numbers. He's been practicing against SEC defenses. It may be more scout team, that's fine. But I would think that playing against an Arkansas defense is much different than playing against, you know, whoever Saginaw Valley played against. So I'm going to say that there's a chance, and I'm curious to see if it happens, that maybe Grayson Wilson goes out there and wins the starting job. What happened? I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. He has to beat out a D2 kid and 2 freshmen. The odds aren't that weird. It's not that strange that could happen. He has a similar skill set. He ran for quite a few yards when he was in high school. He's a mobile quarterback, which clearly Bill O'Brien and that staff are looking at more. He's got better size. I could see Grayson Wilson, you know, with a good spring, jumping up and getting that. Now, the one big positive I think that Mason McKenzie has over him is that he's older. You know, I think he's on his 3rd or 4th year, while Wilson's only on his 2nd. But, you know, playing in the SEC, that to me, that gets you a little bit more, that sharpens the sword a little bit more. It's, you know, it's metal on metal there, right? Like you're playing against good athletes that have been, even if they're freshmen, they're 4-star freshmen or highly recruited freshmen. So I think that there's a chance that Grayson Wilson wins the starting job. I'm not at any place to bet on it yet. I've never seen either of these two practice yet. So it's not in my, you know, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but just looking at their profiles, it doesn't seem that strange that Grayson Wilson could possibly win it. And maybe he doesn't win it. What happens if you have a Mason McKenzie who is 6 feet, he's smaller, he runs a pretty reckless style. What happens if he gets hurt? Or what happens if he goes out and struggles? You could be seeing Grayson Wilson a lot sooner than people think. So I'm going to put him down as an under the radar because no one's talking about him. I think he could be someone that we could be talking about this spring or summer, and it could be faster than you think. So those are 2 that I'm looking at. I got 2 more. Specifically, I have an offensive lineman and a defensive player in just a moment. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file it by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Folks, I got to tell you, the Everydayer Club gets bigger and bigger every day because there's more and more of you out there that are taking advantage of this great offer. I'm telling you, I've been doing bonus episodes. I just did one yesterday on Father Jack Butler and how quickly he could make changes for BC athletics and some realistic expectations there. I'm going to be talking some recruiting on tomorrow's show. And you get all of these as part of your all access tier. You need to sign up. I'm doing extra bonus shows. I'm diving into sports I don't cover. I'm talking recruiting. I'm talking all sorts of stuff. I'm taking questions, I'm doing all those things that you guys want, all for bonus content on our all access tier. Plus, you can text with me. You get a daily newsletter. You get access to our Discord, which is like a great old group chat. You get all of this as part of that deal. It seems like a no brainer. Sign up today. I hope to see you guys all there. I'm going to leave that link down there in case you think, so you're thinking about it, right? So, because I know you want to sign up. Now, another name I think that no one is talking about defensively is going to be defensive tackle KJ Sampson of Florida State. Now, BC was in desperate need of some defensive tackle help. They lost Owen Stodmeyer. They lost Ty Clemens. You know, there was quite a bit of movement up there, along with graduations of Said McConnell and Quan Williams. They needed to get some talent back in the transfer portal. KJ Sampson is a very interesting one. I thought that I think I really like what they're getting here because, you know, he played 10 games in 2025. He had 11 total tackles, 1.5 for losses. You know, he's 318 pounds, 6'3". He's a good size defensive tackle. And the best part is he's experienced. You need experience and size up front, and that's exactly what you're going to get with him. You can pair him up there with your Chris Marable Jr., who came along well at the end of last year. You know, Makai Byerson, Micah Emedy, who played well and then got hurt. There's options to cycle him in and out. This is a good chance. And to me, Sampson to me seems like the perfect, you know, new situation type of guy, like a guy that just needed a fresh start. He's going to get it at BC. Like, you know, I think you look at some of his stats at Florida State, and it's not like it jumps off the page. But again, it wasn't like he was given a huge opportunity there. He played some, so it's not like he was buried deep on the depth chart, but he definitely was not a starter. So you get that chance to give a guy who looks like the part of every part of what you would want in a defensive tackle. You give him the chance to jump up and start for you. This is the type of perfect opportunity. Now, would you have liked to get a guy that, you know, was a former 4-star or played quite a bit? Sure. But we're talking under the radar guys here. And I think KJ Sampson fits that to a T. He is not a name that a lot of folks are going to talk about, and they haven't really been talking about. But I could see him developing into an everyday starter. Maybe with this change of scenery, we'll see him improve. I lied. I said I was going to give you one defensive player. I'm going to give you two. The other name I want to talk about is Justin Medlock. Justin Medlock to me is not a, you know, a crazy big name to get, but if he plays the role that Mitch Wolf of Eagle Insider says he could play, Medlock could be a real steal for BC. Is he going to be Luke Kuechly? No. Is he going to be Mark Herzlich? No. But he has a skill set that, if it's used well, could make him a very effective defensive player and an upgrade on anything you had last year. He should not be an every down linebacker. He's a bit too small, and, you know, he might get exposed by bigger running backs and things like that. But in obvious passing downs, he's an immediate upgrade over anything you had on your roster last year. One of the biggest issues BC had in pass coverage last year, especially up the middle, was that they had linebackers that just could not cover, guys in space. Owen McGowan was too slow. He was not as athletic as you would like. And some of the younger guys like Griffin Collins or, Bryce Steele probably is more on the Owen McGowan side, was just a step too slow. You have a guy now that's got good speed and can get it back there in coverage. I could see Medlock being that kind of linebacker that if a quarterback makes a mistake and tries to go at him in coverage, he could be making plays. He has good tape. He has good plays. I just think he's going to be more of a role player, but a very valuable role player. This is not a role player that's going to play like 10 snaps. With pass heaviness that you see in college football right now, Medlock is going to play a bigger role. It's just you need to be careful on how you use him. If they use him correctly, he could be a real steal, and he's completely under the radar because, he was more of the end of the recruiting class. So I like Justin Medlock a lot, and I think he's a name that no one really talks about, but I know the staff was really excited they got him, and he could be a real good asset to a defense that really needs to find its own rhythm next year and find a new identity. Maybe Medlock will be one of those names. And then finally, on the offensive side of the ball, an under-the-radar recruit that we have not talked a lot about is Nolan Ray. Nolan Ray, you look at his statistics, comes from Maryland, and he ran for I think 350 to 400 yards last year. So you're like, whoop-de-doo, right? Well, I caution you to be being too skeptical of what Ray can do, because I think the numbers don't show what he could play in BC's system. If BC's offensive line plays well, you're going to need two good running backs. I look at the way this roster is setting up, and I could see them leaning more heavily on designed runs and runs with the quarterbacks, which would be great. They need all those wrinkles. That's going to be a huge addition to what they need to do to make this offense more effective. I could see Ray fitting in perfectly in that Jordan McDonald role. Jordan McDonald has graduated. He's gone. You need a bigger running back to go alongside Evan Dickens and potentially like a Bo McCormick. You need somebody big that can kind of, Bill has said in the past that they want running backs that can wear down defenses and really, by the end of the game, maybe rip off a big run to take over a game. We saw that in 2024 a lot with Jordan McDonald, not so much last year because they were playing from behind most of last year. If BC gets that run game going, Nolan Ray could be a very valuable asset. And again, his stats don't show a whole lot. It's not like you're looking at a guy that, was putting up huge numbers. He didn't do that. But he's going to get an opportunity here. So he's completely under the radar. But by the end of this year, we'll be talking about, just like we were talking about McDonald versus Turbo this year, we'll be talking a lot about Nolan Ray versus, Evan Dickens and how they use both and how this offense kind of complements the two styles of those running backs. I think Nolan Ray was not a name a lot of folks knew about, but I think going into next season, he's going to play a big role. Now, in our final segment, we still don't know what BC's offensive coordinator position is going to look at, but Bill O'Brien's comment that he made on the John Mita Perel show a couple of weeks ago gives me an idea of what I think they're going to be doing. I'll explain all about that in just a moment. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdogs, or building one last same-game parlay, this game has been what everyone's waiting for. This is where you can be looking at not just football now, but basketball, hockey, and baseball too. You can check it out. There's lots of great action. I use it all the time for college basketball. You can find NBA props on there. It's amazing use. And if you're a new customer, just bet $5 and you get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count because football's over, but there's still a lot going on. And you can check it out on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60, and a great place to check out. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here, wrapping things up. And I want to make sure that you all know this. As if you have not been checking it out on the feeds, we have a new kind of scheduling system. You get more content all over the place. I've been doing bonus episodes, I've been doing all access stuff. We're adding more and more content to our channels, and it's been a lot of fun. So I hope you're checking out all the new stuff. There's 2 shows from yesterday, and all access people got a 3rd show. The bonus shows are usually shorter, and the second shows are shorter too. But if you have 10 minutes to do, dishes or something and you want some more BC content, it's right there for you. Now, I want to get into the offensive coordinator position. Still empty. And I think that's by design. I don't think it's because BC has been losing, targets that they've been going after, or they don't know what they're doing, or they're waiting for something. I don't get the sense that's what's going on. Now, last 2 weeks ago on Mita Perel's show, because it happened, I believe he recorded the day that Will Lawing left. I talked to Bill about that, and he basically said, we're in no rush with this. We'll figure something out, and I'm calling the plays anyways. So that gave me, I think he didn't say calling the plays. It's my offense, which to me at that point meant the way I took it when I first heard it was, oh, it's his scheme. Whoever he's going to get is going to run his scheme anyways. But the more time has gone on, I've taken a step back. And I have a thought. I think of what I think is actually happening. I honestly don't believe they're going to go external to hire anybody, because I think they're going to, my guess is they're parsing out the offense in a different way. I do think Bill O'Brien is going to be the guy calling the offense. Legitimately, he will be calling the offense. He did that, I believe, at Houston. You've seen a lot of offensive coaches do that. We'll have to see how that goes. And we'll wait to see how he kind of sees how the feel and flow of that. But I bet that some of the things that Lawing did are going to get spread out. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you saw like Jonathan DiBiase, the quarterback's coach, get a title bump as he becomes the passing game coordinator, something like that, right? Like he's in charge of all the passing game coordination. I could see that happening. And then there's another coach that doesn't have his position right now, officially on the staff, like a coaching role, Rob Chudzinski. He was the one I said all along was someone I projected to be the offensive coordinator, but I'm wondering if they're going to change it just a little bit. Now, he's just a senior analyst on offense right now. He was the former OC under Jeff Hafley, and his son's the tight end right now. I'm wondering if he'll be coaching his son as the tight ends coach, because that was part of Will Lawing's job. He was the tight ends coach. I wonder if Chud will take over that part and then maybe they'll put him up at the box or something, because they're going to have a coach. I would imagine they're going to probably have a coach up in the box to kind of get that aerial view and to look down on what they need to do. Wonder if they put Chud up there. So that's my thoughts. I wonder if, because then you have Chud as your tight ends coach. So you have your extra coaching spot. You have your other 2 coaches doing the other pieces. You have that all kind of coordinated. And then maybe you make Mike Hart like running game coordinator. Like the way that they chunk out these coaching spots, they can do a million different things, right? But I'm more convinced every day that they're just going internally based off of what O'Brien said. It seems like that's the case, that they're not going to go outside and they're not going to hire anyone new. And for some, that might be disappointing. You might want to see a new face in there. You might want to get a new take. But I think we all know that O'Brien is cares a lot about how he views his program. So I would think he might want to just keep things as is, right? So that's the case. And, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe tomorrow I'll see Matt Zenitz tag me again and there'll be some new hire. But for now, that's my guess. I think they're going to probably stay internal. It'll be interesting too with Chud. He was a senior analyst, which is not I imagine not a great paying job, but he was an NFL coach and OC for a while. So I'm sure money is not a huge issue for him. But now as tight ends coach, he has to go on the road. Now, tight end is like, you get like, was he going to recruit like 2 guys? But if they make him recruit a region, because positional coach usually recruit a region of the country, how is he going to like that? Because I feel like he's an older coach and maybe he just wants to stay closer to home. how that'll all work out. The recruiting end is the part I have yet to figure out how they're going to do that. But I get the sense that's my gut. Again, just my gut here. I'm not saying this is what's happening, but that's my thoughts there. Do you agree with me? Leave it in the comment section. I want to hear what you have to say too. So we'll be back again tomorrow. On Wednesday's show, BC plays Stanford. We'll have that as our bonus show. We'll also be talking about I'm going to talk some more recruiting with you guys tomorrow and anything else that breaks. Follow me at AJ Black 247 on Twitter. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm on all of those. And again, I hope you do become part of our Everydayers Club. It's not expensive, and it's really a great way to get more Boston College content. And some of you are looking for ways to support this podcast. It's a great way to do that too. Hopefully, I'll see you guys over there, and I'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College. Your team every day.